Disaster at the Democratic National Convention. Good morning, Kuhner country. Ay, ay, ay. You want to talk about a bleep show? Oh, did you watch any of the DNC in Chicago? In Chicago yesterday? Ay, ay, ay. A lot to talk about, but let me just say this. You have raging protesters outside the convention site. Tens and tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters who apparently breached the security wall, clashed with police, clashed with other Democrat delegates, leading to paralysis, violence breaking out outside the convention. It apparently was delaying people from getting into the United Center, the convention site itself, for hours. So, for much of the night, they were speaking to a half-empty arena. So, already, it didn't go well. But, my friends, never mind the fact that it was a freak show. Never mind that it was one crazy left-winger after another. They rolled out Hillary Clinton. They rolled out AOC. They just rolled them out. Raphael Warnock, Chris Coons. They just rolled them out. One after another, after another, after another. All of them more radical, more insane than the other one. It dragged on and on and on. It didn't end. In fact, the real story of the night, there's a lot, but the real story of the night, this was an absolute humiliation for Joe Biden. Here is a man. I want you to think about this, okay? Let's just objectively, in the most nonpartisan way possible. Here is a man who legitimately won the Democratic primary. He should be the nominee. By all rights, he got 14 million Democrat votes. He had 87% of the vote. He won the nomination. He destroyed what little opposition there was. They launch a coup to overthrow him. They overthrow him because of his disastrous debate performance against Trump and the fact that he began tanking in the polls. And Kamala Harris seizes her opportunity, helps stick the knife into him, and then literally has a coronation. No open primary, nothing. So they throw him overboard. They cast him aside. They overthrow him. And Monday night, last night, was supposed to be all about Joe Biden. That was the theme. Thank you, Joe. We love you, Joe. Which, by the way, they kept chanting over and over and over again. And guess what? He's pushed out of prime time. It was such a disaster. The logistical scheduling was so badly done. The programming was so screwed up. It just went on with speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker, that it went from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Biden apparently finally only got on the stage at about 11:30. Who the hell is up at 11:30 on the East Coast when you got to work the next day? So they push Biden into late night comedy territory. They push him out of the primetime lineup. So by the time he finally gets to deliver his farewell speech, his big swan song, who's watching? Nobody. Who's listening? Nobody. And in fact, this is not just what I think or what many people have noticed. Biden aides apparently have been leaking to the media, saying this was a huge a form of disrespect to Biden by Kamala Harris and by her people. That this was a slap in the face. And as one of them put it, let me get this straight. Biden bows out, hands her the nomination, hands over his entire campaign infrastructure to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And they can't even have him come on stage when it's prime time. They push him past the prime time slot. This is just wrong. I'm telling you, Biden was bitter. Biden was angry. Biden felt humiliated. The Biden inner circle, the Biden family, were livid at Kamala Harris. They are not going to forget how they totally mistreated this guy all the way to the end. All the way to the end. And now listen to Joe Biden, because it was an angry speech. It was a bitter speech. And listen to him saying to everyone, all I want from you now is to defeat Donald Trump. Listen now to Joe Biden. Roll cut 2, Mike.
Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I love my country more.
No, you were pushed out. I mean, come on, who are we kidding? I mean, this was, and look, even CNN, even this is CNN, came out and said, look, there's so much BS. There's so much bull. I can't say it on the air. I'm going to get fined. There's so much bull crap floating around this convention. No, Biden didn't willingly pass on the torch to Kamala Harris. He didn't stand there and say, oh, I'm too old for my country, for democracy, for freedom. I pass it over to you, Kamala, my heir apparent. No. It was a coup. They forced him out. In fact, here's what Chris the Weasel Wallace said on CNN. This is Chris Wallace, okay? A rabid never-Trumper, a Democrat hack through and through. But even he was at one point was saying, come on, this is sickening. I mean, come on. Don't pee on our back and call it rain. He goes, as he put it, they threw Biden out of the window. This was Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, the four of them, as I spoke about on this show repeatedly. And they told Biden, they called him up, some even visited him personally, and said, look, as Nancy Pelosi put it, Joe, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. And they forced him out. He didn't want to go. He said again and again, I don't want to go. I won the Democratic primary. Why should I go? I have a mandate. I have Democratic legitimacy. And so they forced this guy out. In other words, he lost his usefulness to the party. And the party is above all. And so they blackmailed him, they threatened him, they ousted him, and they toppled him in a coup from within his own party. That's what happened. And they then installed Kamala. So let's quit the whole, I did it for patriotic reasons. I did it for my country. No, they basically, you did it at the, with the proverbial gun pointed at your temple, your political gun. And so you were pushed out and you were forced out. And you can see that throughout all of Biden's speech. It was an angry, defiant, bitter speech from a bitter old man who knows that this nomination was wrested from him, stolen from him by party elites. And now he and his family had to face the ultimate humiliation, the ultimate insult, the ultimate slap in the face. They couldn't even let this guy speak to a 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock primetime audience on the East Coast. They loaded it up with speaker after speaker after speaker. So by the time, and by the way, Jill Biden, who looked like she was dressed in some kind of a trash bag. Did you see the outfit she had on? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. What is it, like Glad garbage? You can turn that into a dress? But anyway, let that go. So Jill Biden introduces Joe. But before Joe, then there's Ashley Biden. You know, his daughter, the one that he infamously had inappropriate showers with, according to her in her own diary. I mean, the whole thing, frankly, was disgusting from top to bottom. And then they roll this guy out at 11:30. And he goes on for over 50 minutes. Then they put Kamala on stage with him, and the two phonies are kissing and hugging each other. And now Biden is gone. He already flew to California. He's going to go on vacation for the entire week in California. And then next week, he's going to be in Rehoboth Beach, which, by the way, begs the question, who the hell is running the country? Seriously, this guy's off on another long vacation. She's campaigning. Who the hell's running the country? Okay, but let that go. It's a boring convention. It's a disjointed convention. It's a long, drag-out convention. Did you watch any of it? And how do you think it's playing out? I think it's a disaster, but that's me. I want to hear from you. All of your calls next.
The word that everybody is using to describe tonight is bittersweet. It's just bitter. The fact of the matter, I'm not saying Joe Biden is bitter, but, you know, it's like you've been thrown out a window, and as you're falling, you go, gee, it's nice out here. No, he got thrown out of a window, and basically he was forced. There's going to be a lot of talk tonight about how generous it was of him and selfless of him. He was basically forced out by Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. And I suspect even the fact that there has been this surge of enthusiasm since he left and Kamala Harris took his place, that's got to be pretty tough, too. You got thrown out of a window and everybody's applauding the person who's now in the room.
That, of course, was Chris the Weasel Wallace on This is CNN. 621 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you right out of the gate the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will you watch any of the DNC that's taking place in Chicago? Last night was the opening night. It was supposed to be to honor Joe Biden. They honored him so much, they literally pushed him all the way back to beyond prime time, where he almost spoke at midnight when his speech began. Most of the country didn't even get to see his speech because they pushed it so far back. So anyway, and by the way, incredibly tedious, incredibly boring much of the time. People are complaining. This is not riveting television, believe me. But the larger question is, to all of you, are you going to watch any of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via text, via X, my bad. My handle there is at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. Okay. What Biden did do last night, and this may be an underhanded way of stabbing Kamala in the back, was he repeatedly tied Kamala to his policies. Now, he's not stupid. He may be semi-demented. He may have serious cognitive mental decline. But, you know, the guy's not a complete idiot. And he knows how unpopular his policies have been. And what he did deliberately last night was say, if you like my policy on forcing electric vehicles on everybody, Kamala supported me. If you like my border policy, Kamala supported me. If you like unlimited immigration, Kamala supported me. If you like my policy on crime, Kamala supported me. He went out of his way to point out that she was the tie-breaking vote on the two most seminal pieces of economic legislation, that was passed, that essentially the Green New Deal, the Inflation Reduction Act, all of that massive gusher of almost $6 trillion in spending. He said Kamala was there for that vote. So, by the way, on Israel, he went out of his way to say, Kamala backed me on Israel. And the camera flashed right away to Kamala, and she gave no reaction whatsoever because she knows that that policy is deeply unpopular with the progressive Hamas anti-Semitic wing of the Democratic Party. So what he did clearly last night was he tethered her, he tied her to his policies. I mean, they're inseparable. So I don't know if politically he did her any favors whatsoever. Now, as for Joe Biden himself, it's a classic Joe Biden speech. It really was. It was disgusting. It was despicable. It was divisive. It's what Biden has been doing for the last 3.5 years. And I said this to Grace last night as we were watching parts of the convention. I said, you know what? He really is the worst president we've ever had. I know Obama's the mastermind. I know Obama's the puppet master. There's no question. But never have I seen a president so willfully, deliberately, systematically divide, incite, and polarize this country the way this man has. The reason why the country is unraveling, the reason why we are on the verge of being at each other's throats, the reason why political tensions are almost coming to a boil is because of this man in particular and his inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric. And nothing changed last night. He yelled, he screamed, he pounded the table. Yup, ultra MAGA, Trump, threat to democracy, threat to freedom. That's all this guy went on and on like a broken record over and over and over again about how this election, democracy's at stake, and that Trump and his supporters are racists and white supremacists and the enemies of democracy. And so he left the way he came in. An angry, bitter, inflammatory, poisonous old man who did everything he could to try to split this country apart. My friends, it was a horrible speech capping a horrible night. So I want to hear from you. Did you watch the convention? And is this helping or hurting Democrats? Your calls.
We're in a battle for the very soul of America. I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017. Extremists coming out of the woods, carrying torches, their veins bulging from their necks, carrying Nazi swastikas, and chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bile that was heard in Germany in the early 30s.
That was Biden's speech last night. I mean, it's the same tape with this guy over and over and over again. 6:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the Democrats think that this is an awesome convention. I'm telling you, I can tell because I can see on the text line 70470. Libs are texting in, Dems are texting in. They're taunting the Kuhner man. They're taunting Trump. They're taunting the audience. The emails are pouring in. Many Democrats are saying it was an incredible night. They loved Hillary's speech. They loved AOC's speech. They actually watched Biden's speech. They thought this was statesmanlike. So again, lying repeatedly, pushing the Charlottesville hoax, demonizing not just Trump, but all of his supporters, slandering, libeling, and dehumanizing half the country, or over now half the country. They think this is a winning strategy, and they think it's good for the nation. So, okay, if that's what you think. Now, as far as I read it, and then I want to go to the phone line, 617-266-6868, unless you're a hardcore progressive Dem, okay, a socialist, communist, Marxist Democrat, what did you see last night that would appeal to you or to your family? If you're a working class voter, if you're a working class family, if you're a middle class family, what did they offer you last night? Nothing. Nothing. At best, empty platitudes. I mean, at best. If they weren't yelling and screaming and shouting, and by the way, constantly going on about abortion. Abortion, 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 abortion. You know, and by the way, Trump's position couldn't be more moderate. Leave it to the states. Leave it to the states. So, for example, you live in Massachusetts, no one's going to touch your abortion rights. Believe me. Hell, you live in New England, no one's going to touch your abortion rights. In fact, in most states, no one's going to touch your abortion rights. But no, they keep going on. No, we have to federalize Roe v. Wade. No, we have to make it legal in every state, all the way up through even partial birth abortion until the baby is born, sometimes even after the baby is born. So that's all the most radical, extreme abortion position imaginable. And that was their, literally, I'm telling you, that was their entire convention last night. And so my question to you, did you watch it? What did you make of it? And is this going to help or hurt the Democrats? Is this going to give Kamala a much-needed bump in the polls? 617-266-6868. Let's start with Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Bob.
No, I did not watch the convention. I knew what was going to be said. I'm seeing clips this morning, and it's just exactly what you would have expected. But the reason for my call, have you ever had the pleasure of getting a whiff of tear gas?
No, I've never, knock on wood, I've never been tear gassed.
All right, well, we did it in the military. But my point is, that'll put an end to all this nonsense and all these rallies and people crashing over fences. It's over when you get tear gassed. Believe me, it's over.
Oh, I agree. I mean, they don't want to use tear gas to disperse the protesters. No, to me, Bob, this is what I find shocking, is that there are so many protesters. And to be fair, the local media in Chicago is covering it extensively because it has grinded, it's ground downtown to a halt. And they had to board up all the businesses, all of the big offices and business skyscrapers in Chicago are basically shut down. They've told their employees, don't show up to work. Everybody take the week off because it's just too dangerous. It's not safe. So downtown Chicago has been paralyzed by these protests. And you can see the numbers. They are tens and tens and tens of thousands of these Antifa and pro-Hamas thugs. And it's preventing these delegates from being able to get into the convention. The lines are, from everything I've read, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. The media can't get in. Staff can't get in. Delegates can't get in. So it is hindering and to some extent paralyzing the convention. Now, they did break the outer perimeter of the wall. And, Bob, I want to get your take on this. What I find, to me, the height of hypocrisy, and I said this on X last night, and it got quite a good reaction. I said, think about it. This is the very same party, literally, the Democrats. If you support a border wall, racist. If you support voter ID, racist. But at their own convention, to nominate their presidential nominee, their convention site is completely surrounded and protected by a huge wall, a massive security wall. And not only that, but to enter the convention, guess what? You've got to show ID. You can't make this up. So for them and for the party elites, walls are great. They're beautiful. ID is great. It's beautiful. Suddenly, it's not racist. It's not discriminatory. It's not the enemy of democracy. It's not xenophobia. No, it's the opposite. You see, when it comes to protecting their rear ends, the more walls, the better. The more ID you have to show, the better. So, again, their hypocrisy is stunning and it's shameless. And if I were the Republicans, I would point this out every second, every minute for the next 4 days. Why is it when we want to protect the American people with a border wall, it's racist? Why is it when we want to have election integrity and protect the integrity of our elections and say, no, I'm sorry, we want to make sure you have the right to vote and you have you're registered to vote. Sorry, we want to see some ID. We want to make sure you're the person you say you are. Just like you say you're the person you say you are when you want to go into that convention. So, no, there's no question, Bob. The Democrats are being exposed. And what you're seeing on the streets of Chicago is, to me, a disgrace. I believe it's only going to get worse as the week goes on. But the national media is deliberately not covering it, Bob. They don't want the American people to see the clashes with police, the clashes with Democrat delegates, Democrat versus Democrat, because then that would expose the deep rift and the deep divide within the party. So, like so much else, they cover it up. Final word to you, Bob.
They're also predicting these riots to start in the colleges again. And you got to put an end to this stuff. It's just not fair to the people that want to go get an education and have to be worried about going to class and, just being at the college. So, anyway.
I'm with you. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Excellent point. Well, to take it even further, here, you're right about the colleges. Please don't get me wrong. Here, in Chicago. So you can't work for a whole week? Because these idiots decided to descend on your city and shut the whole city down? And they're going to loot and break windows and vandalize and burn. And so they have to basically shut everything down and board up their businesses? Businesses lose an entire week of revenue? Because these idiots want to bang their drums and clash with police. And apparently, as I said, they tore part of the fence and they tried to rush police officers. So, look, and again, I don't feel sorry for the Democrats. You coddled these anti-Semitic monsters. You appeased these anti-Semitic monsters. You welcomed these anti-Semitic monsters. Well, this is what you get. 617-266-6868. And by the way, Sandy and I could have been in Chicago. And we're saying, thank God we didn't end up going. Because we'd probably be outside the security perimeter at a hotel, and we'd have to navigate these lunatics and go through these protesters to make our way into the convention. I'm happy I'm not there. That's all I can say. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, Joe Biden delivers his farewell address, even though it was near midnight when he finally got a chance to deliver it. Ay, what a screw up. Anyway, day one of the Democratic convention is now over. Have you been watching it? Did you see any of it? And what do you think? Is this going to help the Democrats? Hurt the Democrats? They were viciously attacking Trump all night. Notice they hardly mentioned Biden's disastrous record on the border, on immigration, on inflation, on the economy, on crime. It's, you would almost think that Trump was in power for the last 3.5 years, if you listen to the convention last night. And no idea that Kamala Harris was vice president for the last 3.5 years, and that in many ways she is responsible for the mess that the country is in. And notice, she's the incumbent. She's the incumbent. And yet the media, the Democratic elites, and those who are scripting the convention, and this is a production, make no mistake about it, This is like a Hollywood production. That's what we watched last night. That's what we're going to be seeing now tonight, tomorrow, and for the final night on Thursday. And they're wanting to keep her as a so-called fresh face, even though she was a co-president with Biden and basically is responsible and responsible for running this country into the ground. And suddenly now, she just dropped out of the sky? She's this outsider? She's this insurgent? She's somehow not responsible for anything that happened over the last 3.5 years? What, she was the epicenter of it? Listen now, again, even CNN, I can't believe I'm playing two cuts already now, of CNN saying, well, there's a reason why they're not telling us what a hard leftist Kamala is, because that would sink her. Listen now to Jake Tapper saying, no. If you look at the Democratic platform, they're trying to be as vague and unspecific as possible. This is all sizzle, no steak. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Listen, the platform was largely the draft of it put in place and voted on earlier this summer. And I think in talking to some folks, the idea of reopening the platform to try to fit in not yet fully developed Kamala Harris policies while they were quickly changing, they thought they would be opening a can of worms, right? And that there would be all of a sudden some fights about what goes in the platform, and they wanted to avoid that at all costs. So they're willing to take the hit on the fact that the platform is sort of a relic of the Biden era because it's a non-binding thing. They'll vote officially today as part of the party business to put it into effect. But as you know, it has no binding capacity to it.
Right. And we should note that this also allows Vice President Harris to stay vague, stay, unspecific. That's from the Biden platform. That's not ours. And, you can't really attack her on that, given the fact that Donald Trump didn't even have a platform in 2020.
So, they're trying to justify all this. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, that's the whole point. They're trying to invent a moderate, centrist, fresh, hip, cool Kamala Harris. And what you're watching now is propaganda at its finest. It is the transformation of this anti-American radical leftist into somehow a working class mom, I swear to you, who identifies with the struggles of the little guy and the little gal. They showed a video last night. I don't know if you saw it. Suddenly now she came from working middle class roots. Suddenly now she came from very, very ordinary working class home and background. When, as I pointed out, she spent many of her years in Montreal, Canada, and in particular, Westmount, an area of Montreal which is the richest, wealthiest zip code, not just in the province of Quebec, the wealthiest zip code in the entire country. And I have a lot of listeners up in Canada, many in Montreal. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about Westmount? Please tell me. I mean, it's like saying you grew up in Wellesley here in Massachusetts or Beverly Hills in California or the Hamptons and say, oh, I know the struggles of the working class. I mean, the lies, the extent to which now they're completely changing her biography and making her into something she is clearly not. That's what we're watching. And these idiots that attend the DNC are like, and they're just lapping it up. Michael in Florida. Thanks for holding, Michael, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Michael?
I'm great. It's primary day down here in Florida for the local elections. So I'm about to hop in the car and go out and cast my vote for the locals here. But I wanted to... something popped into my head last night when I did watch the convention, and when Joe came out, and it was at a late hour, I couldn't help but pull from the scene from Star Wars when Darth Vader takes his helmet off. That looked like Joe Biden. And then I tried to focus on what he Yeah, it was like, he's not looking too good, man. But, his message and Kamala's message is, you're right, they've gone so radicalized. And the other thing that struck me were the protesters outside of Chicago. It looked like a Grateful Dead show. There's people sitting on the fence, people smoking pot, pardon my language. It wasn't they don't have a concerted effort here. Their concerted effort, I believe, is to try to pound down the right at any cost and pound down Israel at any cost. But where's their message? I'm an economist by trade, and where's your economic message? What are you going to fix? What are you going to turn around? What are you going to do this? And, they dance around that, and you're right, Kamala spent that time in the zip code in Canada that, that you're right, Beverly Hills, Boca Raton, you're not slumming it, as the kids say.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing is really disgusting, and they're deliberately lying and deceiving and manipulating the American people. And they tried to sell us Joe Biden in 2020, and now they're trying to sell us Kamala Harris. And really, and you're right, when you look at the specifics, what are they offering? Well, price controls. Well, that's going to lead to food shortages and starvation and famine. I mean, that's everywhere it's been tried. It's been an absolute disaster. Price controls on food production, as I talked about yesterday. These people are crazy. She's crazy. $25,000 a check to anybody who's a first-time home buyer. I mean, I could go on and on and on. $1.7 trillion in extra spending on top of a $2 trillion annual budget. I mean, how fast do you want to bankrupt us? So what they do offer is poison. It's toxic. It'll ruin this country. And then the rest, they just think they can bamboozle us. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe they do think, look, Democrats privately believe that 51% of Americans are idiots. That's really what they believe deep down. That if you just throw out enough, smoke and mirrors and put on a good dog and pony show and come out and roll out AOC and roll out Hillary Clinton and go on about how, we're going to lower costs. Well, what have you been doing for the last 3.5 years? Who gave us inflation? You did. And since, Michael, you talked about being an economist, here, this came out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the average American family has lost $25,000 in the last 2 years. Basically, about almost $1,500 to $2,000 a month. That's what inflation over time, over the last couple of years, has cost the average family. What you pay for in extra food, in extra groceries, in extra energy bills, utility bills, gas, you name it. It's gotten so expensive that it's costing the average family over $1,500 a month extra. Same food, same gas, same everything, same basic necessities, same electricity. Nothing has changed. You're just paying that much more for it. Now, they're burying the working and middle class. And they're going on about they're going to help lower costs. Please stop it. Really. And, and they act like it's all Donald Trump's fault. Well, he hasn't been running the country for the last 4 years. You have. And when he ran the country, inflation was 1%. And gas was literally half what it is now. And food was 30 to 40% cheaper than what it is now. So what are we talking about? Michael, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Tommy in Hull. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning, my brother.
Hi, Tommy.
I just wanted to tell you, number one, I never miss a minute of your show. I listen to you at work all the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Tommy.
I want to tell you we appreciate your voice, and you're a hero to us all.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, I don't know if you knew or not. You haven't talked about it yet, but you did touch on the abortion topic. But they had popped up vasectomy tents outside the DNC. So they're basically these ideological sycophants are actually neutering their base.
Oh, no, I heard about that. No, Tommy, you're completely correct. So, you can show up in a tent and they'll just give you a vasectomy right on the spot. Or have you seen the mobile abortion trucks and buses that they have? So they literally, it's like if you want to have an abortion, show up and they'll take a look. And if they can give you an abortion, they'll give you an abortion right there on the spot. I mean, Tommy, these people are sick. They're really sick. I mean, is this what the Democratic Party has descended to? Unlimited abortion, vasectomies, and Marxist economics. I've given open borders, Marxism, unlimited abortion, and vasectomies. There's your Democrat and transgenders. There's your Democratic Party, Tommy.
Well, after observing the first night of this fiasco, you can only deduce from their screeching and their topics that they're striking out sheerly in fear.
Well, they can see Trump is coming, and they can see the tidal wave is building and building and building, and they've lost the country. Everybody can see they've lost the country. Look, anybody who works for a living, anybody who's got any sense of decency, anybody who serves in the military, anybody who's connected to reality, looks at last night's convention as a freak show and says, why would I vote for these people? Really, seriously, what do they offer me? Except more of the same, except maybe even worse. I mean, Tommy, really, if you're normal, if you work, if you pay taxes, if you're on Social Security, if you're in the military, I could go on and on. If you're in law enforcement, why the hell would you want to vote for these people? That's like voting to cut your left arm off. Tommy, thank you so much for that call. No, look, there's no question. They thought they had a successful night. I disagree. I completely disagree. It was boring as hell. It went on and on. It dragged on and on. Many of the speakers here, AOC, yelling, screaming, angry. I mean, one after another, yelling. Jamie Raskin, I don't know if you saw Jamie Raskin. Raskin went up there and wouldn't stop talking about January 6th. And the whole theme, there's really two themes, okay? I'm going to get to the second one very soon. But the whole theme of yesterday, and you're going to see it now for the next couple days, it's lock him up. That's all it is now. Lock him up. Lock him up. Lock Trump up. In other words, put this guy in prison. Put him in jail. Let's jail our political opponents. This is going to unite the country? This is a positive, optimistic, uplifting vision for the country? And they're chanting and cheering and yelling and stomping and screaming and lock him up, lock him up. This unbridled rage against Donald Trump. And then it's the second theme. And let me get to it right now before I go to more calls. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. And it's really Hillary Clinton who pushed this very hard last night. This was her moment now. And she talked about Kamala Harris breaking the ultimate glass ceiling. And, she bashed Donald Trump. She called for him to be locked up. I could go on and on. It was a vicious speech. It's classic Hillary. It's classic Hildebeest. But at its core, what she's saying is it's time to elect a woman, a female, as president of the United States. Now, they can't define what a woman is. That's, that when you press them, what's a woman, they can't give you a definition. Okay? But suddenly when it comes for president, they can somehow describe one. So it's funny how it works for the Democrats that way. But let that go. It's all about, forgive me, but now it's all about the plumbing. It's all about, really, I'm sorry, but it's all about what's between the legs. That's what it is. And the chromosomes. That's what it's all about now. So what they were pushing yesterday over and over again, as Hillary put it, Kamala's mother is looking down with a smile. My mother is looking down with a smile. for women across America, our time has come. It's time to break the ultimate glass ceiling. Vote for Kamala because she's a woman. And she tried to tie it, her speech, to tie it to the suffrage movement and women getting the right to vote over 100 years ago, and basically saying now this is progress. If we elect anyone other than a woman, we're going backwards. It's reactionary. So according to her, what this election is about, and according to the Democrats, what this election is about, is really now two things. Lock President Trump up, and by the way, I think that was a clear dog whistle. What dog whistle? It was a bullhorn. To Judge Juan Merchan, that hack, to sentence Trump to prison in a couple of weeks. Lock him up. Put him behind bars. That's what we do now. We lock up our political opponents and we jail and imprison them like every other banana republic. And the second one is vote for her because she's a woman. And the implication that Hillary made last night was, you see, I was a little bit of a trailblazer. People didn't vote for me. It was no longer Russia collusion. It was no longer the election was stolen from me. It was no longer Vladimir Putin and Trump worked together to steal votes. Okay, that was the lie that she peddled. Now it's, they just didn't vote for me because I was a woman. I was the victim of sexism and misogyny and the deplorables and these reactionary, backward, MAGA voters. But now, 8 years later, women, hear me roar. It's our time now. And so she's telling everyone out there, sisterhood, it's time to vote for a woman. Kamala is a woman. Pull the lever for Kamala. Now, to me, that's the most insane and frankly insulting argument you can possibly make. What if I said to you, we've never had a bald president. Vote for someone who's bald. It's our time now. Or whatever. Green-eyed. We've never had a green-eyed, I'm just making it up. We've never had a green-eyed president before. It's time to vote for someone with green eyes. Whatever. I could give you a million examples. What would you say to me? We've never had a president 5'2". It's time to short people unite. You'd be like, are these people nuts? You vote for the person with the best policies, the best record, the best character, the best vision for the country. Why? Because being president affects all of us. Hell, it not just affects our country, it affects the world. So if this woman wins and implements price controls as she vows to do in her first 100 days, and you got to wait in line to get to the grocery store, or, you've got bread lines, or you can't get a loaf of bread, or you can't get bananas or milk at the grocery store because food production has been completely disrupted. Who cares whether she's a woman or a man? It's still wrecking you and your family. It's still starving you and your family. So who cares? Who cares if it's a man, i.e. say Stalin, who's imposing price controls, or a woman, Kamala, who's imposing price controls? You're getting screwed either way. So what, does it make you feel better? Go, well, hey, I'm starving, but it's a woman. Say what you want. At least it's a woman that's screwing me and my family. To me, it's an absolutely absurd, ridiculous argument. But that's me. So I want to ask all of you, 617-266-6868. Hillary and the Democrats now say it's time to vote for a woman and break the ultimate glass ceiling. Do you agree or disagree? And to the women in the audience, I especially want to encourage you to call in. Will you vote for Kamala? Should you vote for Kamala because she's a woman? 721 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Chuck in Dighton. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing great. How are you, Chuck?
I am good. Hey, I got a quick question. Didn't we have the SAVE Act pass? And can't that SAVE Act be used in the upcoming elections if there's any discrepancy in the voting, the mail-in voting? Can't they invoke that SAVE Act to prove that everybody that voted or mailed in a vote is an American citizen registered? End of story.
Well, in theory, yes. But, Chuck, the Democrats shot that down in the Senate. So that's, that tells you, Chuck, that tells you everything you need to know. Here you have a bill that expressly says non-citizens should not be allowed, cannot, and should not be allowed to vote in federal elections, especially presidential elections. And the Democrats voted against it. And they literally, they stopped it. They blocked it. So, Chuck, that tells you, are they the party of fraud and cheating? There you have it. There's no more evidence you need than that. It's right there. It's out in the open.
A fair election, or you don't. And apparently they don't. So like you said, Jeff, that tells everything about the Democratic Party you need to know. And that's the question they should be, or Donald should be putting out there, that they obviously want to cheat. They're going to cheat. We know they're going to cheat, but we have to do our due diligence and try to stop them in any way, shape, or form.
Well, Chuck, my fear is, you're completely right, by the way, not 100% as I like to say, but 1,000%. No, my fear is this. Look, Chuck, if this is a free and fair election, Trump wins by tens of millions of votes. We win in a massive landslide. The country is on our side when it comes to our policies, our ideas, our agenda, our vision. There's no question. There's no question. No, they're going to steal this election. And it's going to be up to us to either prevent them from stealing or to prevent enough of them from stealing so we can put Trump over the top. But my fear is we're going to catch them stealing. They're going to declare victory. And then we're going to be at a serious impasse and a full-blown constitutional political crisis. And I think there's no question now. How radical Harris and Walz are and the policies now they're openly espousing, you're not planning to win this election in a free and fair manner. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. It's like me running for office and saying, I'm going to go and cut all I'm going to cut all your hands off. And, I'm expecting to win. When you start pushing price controls and food shortages, and you talk about giving amnesty, and not just amnesty, but free health care and free college to every single illegal alien in the United States. We're talking 30, 40 million. You're not playing to win fair and square. That's a lunatic message. You're crazy. That's like me running and saying, I'm going to force all of you to drink arsenic. And and I'm going to win. You'll see, I'm going to win. So there's no way they're winning this election free and fair. It's impossible. They have to steal it. And I believe the cheat is on. And in fact, I'm trying to get a guest who specializes in voter fraud. I'm trying hard to get this person on because he says they're already cheating in certain areas. And I'm going to do everything I can to expose it. But Chuck, I think you're dead on. The Democrats have told us they don't want free and fair elections. They voted against the SAVE Act. They want illegals and non-citizens to vote. The more, the better. It's out in the open. It's undeniable now. Final word to you, Chuck.
Jeff, my fear is I can't see a way that we can stop them from cheating. And like you said, they'll declare that they won, and then now we have to go and kind of prove that they cheated, just like we did, when Joe Biden got elected, and we're going to be stuck in the same rut again, where there's going to be no contest. Oh, and then we're going to hear it all over again. Do you believe that the 2024 elections were fair and free? Blah blah blah. I don't want to listen to all that crap again. We need him in the White House. We need him to correct this country, because if we don't and he doesn't get in, sad to say, this country is screwed.
We're Venezuela. I mean, we're going to we're Venezuela. That's what it is. We'll become the United States of Venezuela. Chuck, thank you very, very much for that call. I mean, that's just a fact. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you, did you watch last night's convention? What did you make of it? And they've now got two themes. Hate Donald Trump, put him behind bars. And number two, elect Kamala because she's a woman. That it's time now, this critical moment in our history, to put a female in the White House. Will it work? 7:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Okay, there's no question about it. No question about it. Last night's Democratic convention, the DNC, it was a Trump hate fest. And this is a great text I got from 617. Jeff, it became more and more obvious as the night went on last night that the goal for the DNC is not to get them to like Harris, but to stay hating Trump. Bingo. Bingo. What happened to their campaign of joy and good vibes and the vibe election? That went out the window. And just quickly, because the lines are jammed, I want to go right to the phone lines. Joe Biden at times lost his mind. He was like a stark, raving lunatic, a madman, yelling, shouting, screaming. He was so full of hate and anger for Trump because Trump effectively knocked him out with that debate in late June. And so he knows that it was that debate performance and Trump, well, he basically imploded, but Trump destroying him at that debate that led to his ouster and Kamala and Obama and Pelosi and Schumer toppling him in a coup. And so bitter and hateful and vindictive. Listen now to Trump. To Biden rail against Trump and go on about how democracy is on the line. We have to stop this tyranny. Roll cut 3A. Mike.
But I hope you know how grateful I am to all of you. I can honestly say, and I mean this from the bottom, give me my word as a Biden, I can honestly say I'm more optimistic about the future than I was when I was elected as a 29-year-old United States Senator. I mean it. Folks, we just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's nothing we cannot do when we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
And he starts pounding the table. I mean, it went on and on and on. Okay, this is from Lisa Marie. She sent me this message on Messenger. Jeff, Commie Kamala is a poor excuse for a woman, and I wouldn't vote for her if she was the last woman standing. She's a sociopathic socialist. All she does is laugh while she destroys America. Bingo. Bingo. Okay, let's go to Doug in Newburyport. Thanks for holding, Doug, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Doug.
So a couple things I wanted to touch on. I guess specifically the last night I got it. I'm generally a night owl, and even that one put me to sleep. Though I will say I'm shockingly surprised at how coherent the sound bites you selected from Biden were. Usually it's true. Okay, let's try that one again. Anyway, with the food price control, I think that would be an absolute disaster. But one thing I've been thinking about is not only do I think that's going to lead to food shortages, but also I think portion control and reduction. I think, you get a box of Cheez-Its, the family size is going to go from whatever it is down to, minute portions. And, the buck is going to continue to be passed. They're not going to eat the costs of whatever, manufacturing prices are going to be. I mean, I think it will hit a point where the packaging is going to be more expensive than whatever it contains inside. That's one thing I wanted to mention. And then another thing, which I haven't really heard many people talk about, is national rent control, nationwide rent control. And coming as a landlord myself, I own residential rental properties from Newburyport to Amesbury to Boston. And contrary to most people's beliefs, landlords are not the nasty 1%ers sitting on a bag of money and greed. I work my tail off every day. I spent the week under sinks, changing faucets and, pulling down old horsehair plaster and laving and trying to turn, some rough-looking units into some nicer units and find respectable tenants. And, one of the greatest challenges that I think America is facing right now is the high costs of rent, right? But when we actually dig back to, well, what is causing that, I think day one, when you're passing executive orders to shut down drilling and shut down fracking, and when we're buying oil from foreign nations and terrorists for that matter, the cost of diesel is going up. And when diesel goes up, so does everything. And everything will go back to the cost of what it takes to get the groceries to the store, to manufacture building materials, to distribute those building materials, and to combat the inflation that was directly caused by the Biden administration. They're raising interest rates. So now when you have 8% to pull out a loan, people aren't buying, so everyone's racing to get an apartment to rent, thinking, okay, well, I'll buy when the market drops. So now supply and demand, you have a housing shortage, not to mention they're giving, all these free housing and developing all this new housing for these illegal immigrants pouring into the country, which is completely absurd. Meanwhile, American citizens are struggling to make ends meet to pay rent, and they're giving it away. If you go up to Maine, you can't even get a hotel because the hotels are packed with illegal immigrants who are then in turn complaining about not having enough this or that. But they directly cause inflation, which in turn is driving up interest rates, which means more renters, less housing, driving the rent rates up. And if you live in a state like Massachusetts or California, you get tenants who stop paying rent and say, well, screw you, I'm going to stick it to the man. And then you get people who can't pay their mortgages because nobody's paying rent. And Massachusetts allow people to squat in apartments for 6 months and be drugged through the eviction process, and they wind up scot-free. And at the end of it, owing nothing. And you can take them to small claims court, and good luck collecting. The judge may say, well, you owe them the money, and, well, they can't pay it. Well, what are you going to do? Well, if I were to say that to the bank, they take my house. And if you don't pay the gas bill, they shut the gas off. If you don't pay electricity, you shut the electricity off. But if they don't pay rent, well, then you have to hire an attorney. You get drugged through the court system, and you wind up footing the bill.
It's a nightmare.
And
no, Doug, you're dead on. Look, Doug, I'm not saying this, by the way, very eloquent. You've really, in about 2 minutes, laid it out. You've really laid out exactly why there's a housing shortage and a rent crisis in the terms of high exploding rents. It's like an economics lesson in 120 seconds. And not to stroke your own ego, you're a hero. I'm telling you, you're a hero. Because you're right. Landlords are not like these, as you're pointing out, scumbags who, stand there and, oh yeah, we're rich and greedy and we want to squeeze them even more. It's the exact opposite. Landlords are besieged. Landlords are under pressure. Landlords are dealing with out of control tenants. Tenants who don't pay rent. The only thing I would add or reinforce, I guess, is the surge of illegals. What's that done to rent? You've got so many illegals now pouring in, and either they're staying for free at hotels and motels, or they're putting them up at these rental units, rental apartments, which is filling up all the rents and driving up the cost of rent. So what is Kamala Harris proposing? 5% cap on rent across the entire country. Rent control for the entire country. Well, what's going to lead? What's going to happen? If a landlord can't make any money, and if a home builder can't make any money, because you can't make money, believe me, on a 5% rent cap, they're going to stop building homes. Or landlords like Doug are just going to sell and leave. 750 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we can pretty much now tell what the Democrats are going to run on. Kamala is a woman. I am woman. Hear me roar. It is now a time in America to finally elect a female president. That's how they believe they can win the female vote, by winning the female vote and the minority vote that will put Kamala over the top in November. So my question to all of you, if you're a woman in particular, but I want to open it up to everybody, is this a winning strategy and a winning message for the Democrats? And ultimately, do you really care if the president of this country is a man or a woman? To me, what I care about is their character, their policies, their record, their vision. Their plumbing, to me, is irrelevant. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Cindy in the great state of Florida. Thanks for holding, Cindy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I had no plans, and I still have no plans on watching that convention. However, I accidentally hit the button, and Hillary Clinton was just coming on like she thought she was a god. I'm looking at her, Jeff, and I'm saying to myself, that's a body double. Either that or she had a complete facelift because she almost looked good. Okay? So I texted my group of women political friends, and I said, she is a body double. And they said, no, that's really her voice. But, Jeff, artificial intelligence can change your voice. I wanted to share that with you. Secondly, I like you. I like the way Trump talks. He doesn't bother me because he speaks from the heart and he speaks truth. However, Jeff, everybody I talk to, men, women, doesn't matter. They're sick and tired of him attacking. They're so scared that he is going to blow it because people aren't going to vote for him just because he attacks. He needs to stay on the policies. Again, I don't care. I try to reason with these people, but they're totally unreasonable. They want him to talk right and just stay on policy and stop attacking, or else they feel he's going to blow it. That's all I have to say, Jeff, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Cindy. I really appreciate it. No, from my understanding is she's had extensive plastic surgery. I mean, she's had a facelift and, a lot of work on that face. So that's what you saw last night. And look, everything about her is fake, just like everything about Kamala Harris is fake. And everything about that convention is fake. And the entire narrative they're pushing is completely fake. Really, look, you want to talk about democracy just for a second. We're a republic. We're not a democracy. I say this 1,000 times, but let that go, okay? To me, there's nothing more degrading to our democracy than the lies, the propaganda. And that's what this is, the shameless Soviet-style propaganda that you were hearing from the Democrats, from the media, and that was on full display last night. Okay? Here is the propaganda. You want to talk about propaganda? Here it is. This is Dr. Jill speaking before Biden eventually got on. It was nearly midnight. So this is Jill Biden. Speaking last night, first night of the DNC. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Weeks ago, when I saw him dig deep into his soul and decide to no longer seek re-election and endorse Kamala Harris. With faith and conviction, Joe knows that our nation's strength doesn't come from intimidation or cruelty. It comes from the small acts of kindness that heal deep wounds, from service to the communities that make us who we are, from love of a country that shines with promise and renewal. Kamala Harris knows that too.
Oh, yeah. Well, she knows. I mean, she slept her way to the top. That's how she did it. I mean, the bull, you know what? Oh, my God. How could you pile the BS that high? He looked deep into his soul. And for the good of his country, he said, no, it's Kamala's turn. It's her time. We must have the first female minority president, and I'm going to pass the torch, me, Joey. Okay, here's what really happened. They pushed him out in a coup. That's what happened. They toppled him. They overthrew him from power. He legitimately won the primary. He should be speaking Thursday night, not Monday night. He should be the nominee. By all rights, this is his nomination, and they literally stole it from him because they saw that disastrous debate in late June where Trump cleaned his clock and Biden fell on his face, figuratively fell on his face, and they couldn't hide or mask his obvious cognitive decline anymore. And so Democratic elites put maximum pressure. They then blackmailed him. It was naked blackmail. It's all come out now. They were going to use Kamala. She was going to pull the trigger and say, I'm invoking the 25th Amendment. And Obama was going to publicly back it. Schumer was going to back it. Jeffries was going to back it. Hakeem and Pelosi. So this whole soul-searching, this Hamlet routine, for the good of my country, I have to step aside. No, they forced him out. Okay, like a dog, they threw him out on the street when he was no longer useful. Now, don't even take my word for it. The fact that everybody's reported on it, the fact that everybody's confirmed it, let that go. Listen now to Nancy Pelosi. Here's Nancy Pigliosi, the piranha herself, saying, hey, I did what I had to do, like a gangster. Here's her on Pelosi on CNN on orchestrating the move to remove Biden and topple him from power. Roll cut 19, Mike.
It does seem like there's some residual bad blood or resentment, and I'm wondering if you've spoken to him and what your response is to that.
Sometimes you just have to take a punch for the children.
And that's what you're doing right now? You're just going to take the punch for the children?
Who's punching right now?
I don't know.
Anita Dunn said...
I didn't hear this. I'm just hearing.
It was an interview with me.
Maybe he's throwing the punch. I don't know.
No.
I'm not. I would never. But
she said she doesn't want to fight.
Nobody wants to have a fight with Nancy Pelosi at this time.
Well, you know what? I have to do what I have to do.
Right.
He made the decision for the country. My concern was not about the president. It was about his campaign.
There you go. I did what I had to do. Remember, she's the one who famously said to him, Joe, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. And the hard way was, who are going to invoke the 25th? In particular, I'm going to tell you who's going to put the knife in your back. It's going to be Kamala. She's going to publicly call for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. And we've got enough support in the cabinet to overthrow you. And then we're going to publicly come out and we're going to politically humiliate you and cripple you. We're going to kneecap you publicly. We're all going to come out and say, I'm sorry, he's mentally so far gone. He's going to be the first one kicked out of office because of the 25th Amendment. Do you want that to happen, Joe? So, like gangsters holding somebody down with the gun to the head and saying, accept it, accept it, accept it, accept it. And now, all of a sudden, he's George Washington. Now, for the good of the country. Nobody's buying this horse crap. Nobody's buying this. Seriously. There were so many lies last night. It was lie after lie after lie after lie. And as for being nice, I don't want to get into the FBI raiding Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago with shoot-to-kill orders. I don't want to get into the lawfare against Trump and trying to lock him up and put him behind bars. I don't want to go on about the persecution of Trump supporters and the spying on Catholic churches and moms concerned about critical race theory being taught to their kids. Okay, I'm not going to get into any of that. They put Tulsi Gabbard on a domestic terrorist watch list. That's this kindness that they're peddling now. Oh, Joe understands you have to be so kind to people. Yeah, as you follow them and surveil them and brand them as domestic terrorists, people who serve in our armed forces, people who serve in our National Guard. Hell, Tulsi Gabbard, a former influential, prominent leading Democrat, because she dared to criticize the regime. And they're going on last night about, he's such a good guy, Joe. It's all about the little things and the little people and the nice little things you do for him. You phony, you fraud, you. 617-266-6868 is the number. By the way, Trump now has Tulsi on board his campaign. And if you remember, Tulsi Gabbard destroyed Kamala Harris in those early Democrat primary debates. I mean, she really had Kamala's number. And she's been following Kamala's career. She knows everything there is to know about her. She is going to help coach Trump and help him with his debate prep when he goes toe-to-toe, face-to-face with Kamala in September on ABC News. So Tulsi Gabbard is now on our side. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How's it going today?
Good, good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing okay. Jeff, I want to just mention something, and you let me know if this makes sense. Now, the Democrats, they go on and on about if you reelect Donald Trump, we'll never have a presidential election again. In fact, there'll be no more elections, period. Am I right or wrong? Is that what you're saying right now?
That's what they keep.
Okay.
They've been saying this for a year now.
Okay, so by them,
Mark,
free and fair elections. You there?
Mark, you for some reason we lost you. Can you just start from the beginning? About 15 seconds. It's like you hit a dead zone.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. So now by them saying that they don't want free and fair elections by, having everybody and their mother vote, whether they're from the United States, whether they're not from the United States. Jeff, call me stupid, but isn't that the same thing as pretty much not ever having an election again?
Well, yeah, if you're rigging an election, it's not really an election. You're not having free elections. Right. You're canceling free elections.
So when you're cheating and constantly winning from the cheating, that's not having an election again either.
Oh, you're dead on. Mark, you're dead on. And Mark, look, and I want to add something and see what you and get your take on this. Look, Jamie Raskin spoke last night. By the way, I don't know if you saw that. His teleprompter. Yeah, did you see his teleprompter ran out? And it was humiliating. He's like, there's nothing on the screen. I mean, it was, you want to talk about a disaster. But anyway, let that go. Raskin has now sponsored the bill, which is fully backed by Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. So the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats completely now agree that if Trump wins in November, the Democrats, if they control the House and control the Senate, are going to prevent Trump from being inaugurated and seated in power. They're openly saying on January 6, 2025, we will officially block Trump. We will not allow the Electoral College to certify him. So they're the ones now who are openly telling us he can win the popular vote. He can win the Electoral College. He can win it fair and square. We don't care. He's an insurrectionist, according to them, and we are not going to accept the election results. And if we win in November and take back the House, we're not going to seat Donald Trump. He's never going to be installed. He's never going to be inaugurated. So just to go to your point, Mark, they are willing to completely cancel and annul the election if Trump wins in November, and they have the power to block him. So you tell me, Mark, who are the election deniers now? It's them. Am I wrong?
That's, yeah, like you always say, you're 1,000% right. Gee, the insurrectionists calling the insurrectionists. That's funny. That's ridiculous. That's an insurrection as well, but that's a legitimate insurrection, but done by them, not by FBI plants in the crowd, not by Antifa, not by BLM, but them themselves. And they're telling us we're pretty much going to have an insurrection, but without the rioting, pretty much. What a joke these people are. They're such hypocrites, and they make me sick to my stomach. And Jamie Raskin, Jeff, is a freaking weasel. I've said it over and over again. A freaking weasel.
Yeah, he's not right in the head. No, really, he's got a serious screw loose. Mark, thank you so much for that call. Alan in South Carolina, thanks for holding, Alan, and welcome.
Dobry utro, comrade.
Hey, good morning, Alan. How are you, my friend?
A little tired because I actually stayed up and watched that train wreck last night. It was like one of those things you just couldn't turn off after you start seeing the craziness. I mean, I couldn't tell who the bigger wackadoodle was. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Warnock. I mean, they were all just out of their trees. But I got to say this. Biden closed the night with essentially the same dog whistle speech that he had, but without the red background in Philadelphia. That's what I took away from that. And the other big takeaway is I think we finally figured out whose cocaine was in the White House. It's either A, Jill, because how in the world could she possibly say such glowing things about Kamala after the 2020 nomination process and the calling, the whole racist thing? Or it was actually Biden's cocaine, because how in the world could she say such glowing, loving things about the man who molested her as a 12-year-old in the shower?
Alan, I so agree with you. I'm looking at them and I'm like, this is one of the most dysfunctional, perverted, twisted families I've ever seen. And Alan, I don't know if you saw the report that was published by the House Republicans. It's a several 100-page report. I'm not saying read all of it, but just if you can read the executive summary. Or Andy McCarthy in the New York Post has a brilliant op-ed piece on the report. It's now been proven. It's fully corroborated. At a bare minimum, I think it was much higher, but at a bare minimum, the Comer and the entire committee, the House Oversight Committee, can now show the bank records, the checks, the receipts, everything. Joe Biden and the Biden crime family sold our country out for $27 million in cash. $27 million from Ukrainians, from the communist Chinese, from Romanian oligarchs, from Russian oligarchs. The money flowed right into the Biden crime family, Ashley Babbitt, Hunter Biden, Ashley Biden, my bad. Ashley Biden, Hunter Biden, Jimmy Biden. So the way it worked was the money would go to Hunter, like a mob family. Hunter then would give it to Jim Biden, the brother of Joe Biden, and then Jim Biden would then deposit the money in Joe Biden's account. And they found $27 million in which Biden sold influence and access. He sold his influence and political position as vice president in order to benefit either foreign entities like oligarchs, Burisma, or literally foreign countries like China and Ukraine. And they were all in on it. Jill Biden was in on it. Hunter, Jimmy, Frankie, Ashley Biden, all of them. He had them all involved. They were all his bagmen. And this is the kind of family that they're trying to celebrate last night. And I look at someone like Ashley Biden, who goes on in her own diary about how her life has been a wreck because of her father. Sex addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, how he molested her repeatedly in the shower as a young girl, 11, 12 years old. And then she goes out there and gives this speech on his behalf. And the way he was looking at her afterwards, I don't know if you noticed that, Alan. The way he was, it was like sexual. It was like he's looking at her like she's so attractive. This guy is sick. This whole family is sick. And this is what they're, and by the way, Kamala puts the knife right into Biden's back. Okay, and overthrows him from power. And Jill Biden is kissing her ring because they made a deal. The deal is Hunter's not going to jail. Joe's not going to jail. Nobody's going to go to jail. So we'll take care of you, and you guys can ride off into the sunset. All you got to do now is kiss Kamala's ring. I mean, how they got these bloodsuckers and these traitors into the White House is beyond me. But I'm telling you, they make crime bosses look good in comparison. I'm telling you, the mafia has more honor than this corrupt venal family. Final word to you. In fact, you know what, Alan? Hang on. I'm up against a break. I want to get Alan on the other side, and I want to ask all of you, did you watch last night's convention? What did you make of it? And did they slap Biden in the face? Did they humiliate him by pushing him way beyond prime time? He started to speak at about 11:30 Eastern Time. Who the hell is watching then? All of your calls next. 822 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Alan, I don't know how we did it, but Alan in South Carolina pretty much watched the entire DNC last night. It was an absolute freak show. Alan, you said it ended with Joe Biden, and the speech that he delivered was almost the exact same one he delivered several years ago in Philadelphia. His infamous speech where he called everyone who disagrees with him potential domestic terrorists, enemies of the people, his words, enemies of the state. And you said he pretty much ended the way he started his presidency. Please, Alan, pick up where you left off.
All right, Jeff. I think your summary of the Biden crime family was spot on, and I think Jill actually hinted, I can't remember her exact words and how she phrased it, but she hinted at the fact that this is already in the bag, that they've already got this thing locked up for 2024. But that dog whistle speech of Joe's, I mean, that's dangerous, incendiary stuff. I think that, I wouldn't put it past them for another assassination attempt. I mean, just to keep it in the bag for him. I mean, my final word on this whole thing is we cannot dismiss these lunatics. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, they're crazy, they're radical, there's no way that the American people will put up with this. We cannot dismiss these people. I mean, there's a faction of this country that either A, does not pay attention, they're low information, and they just, will vote Democrat, vote blue no matter who, and they'll go for this, or they're so crazy that they'll go for it because Orange Man bad and all this. They don't want the mean tweets and all this. I mean, they're just crazy like these people. So we have to get out there and vote. We cannot, there's no red wave. There's none of that. We got to get out and vote. Like Dan Bongino says, every time he's on his podcast and radio show, 10 people. Get 10 people to go vote with you. It's a mandatory thing. Send 10 messages, send 10 social media posts, get the word out, and get 10 people to the polls.
We've got to swamp the polls. Alan, you're dead on. Alan, I want to run something by you. I want to play a clip and get your reaction. I want to get the entire audience's reaction, all of you Kuhner country. So Kamala Harris makes a surprise appearance last night. Of course, it's all scripted. And so she also gives a mini speech, as you know, Alan. And here is what she said. And I want to get your take. I think it's a dog whistle. Sandy definitely thinks it's a dog whistle, but I want to know if you agree or disagree. This is Kamala Harris. Roll cut 9. Here's Kamala, 9C Mike.
With optimism, hope, and faith, so guided by our love of country, knowing we all have so much more in common than what separates us, let us fight for the ideals we hold dear, and let us always remember, when we fight, we win. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Good night, everyone.
Alan, when we fight, we win. Are they saying that if Trump wins in November, they're going to physically contest the election and you're going to see violence on the streets like you're seeing in Chicago right outside their convention?
Absolutely. I think that, a couple of years ago when we were talking about fighting and Trump was saying fight, meaning fight for, patriotically and verbally and, resist the whole 2020 election and challenge it. They were saying that was hate speech, that was incendiary, and it must be stopped and, lock people up who are talking like that. And yet here they are doing the exact same thing, and it's commonly accepted. I mean, this is crazy.
Alan, thank you very much for that call. I think there's no question. What they're saying is, if we don't win it in November and Trump wins, burn it to the ground. They did it in 2020 during the BLM riots, and they're saying we'll do it again. 8:32, almost 8:33 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jake.
Jeff, if you have a few Rolaids, throw them my way, because even that I wouldn't watch that freak show last night, but the clips you're playing this morning are getting me absolutely ill with these communists. Jeff, you know something? We have a problem. We can talk until the cows come home about how corrupt the Democrats are, about how great a President Donald Trump was. We can tell the truth about everything and about what they're trying to do to this country. But there's one very important thing. I don't think they would attempt this at all if the steel wasn't already set. Don't forget, last year, in 2020, they say Biden got something like 81 million votes, which is a joke, an absolute joke. That means they sold anywhere from 10 to 20 million votes, or they made phony ballots up. They're doing that right now as you and I speak. They're making up the phony ballots. They'll say, come and try to stop us. You can't stop us. So you and I can talk all day long, all week long, all year long about how great Donald Trump is, about how disgusting these Democrats are. In every which way, they're disgusting. What's going to happen when they steal it again this year? Does Trump have enough of a ground game? Has he been preparing this for 3.5 years to stop the theft? Because nothing else matters if they can't stop the theft on the ground. And I'm not so sure they can do it. I'm not so sure they can stop the absolute, the way they have put this together, Jeff. I'm really worried about this. Really worried.
Well, Jake, look, let me put my cards on the table, okay, as the Germans would say, because I think you've put your finger right on it. This is now forget $64,000 question, because under Bidenflation, this is now the $1 million question. Can Trump stop or hold off the steal? That's now, to me, the question. From now until November 5th, that is, to me, the only question. And the only way he can do this, he's not Superman. His team is not Supermen. They're not, they're not the Avengers or the Justice League. He's going to need help. And he's going to need help from Republican governors. He's going to need help from a Republican attorneys general. He's going to need help from Republican secretaries of state. And to show you how bad it is, please, everybody out there, Jake, you, not just you, everybody, you need to hear this, okay? This is from Maria Bartiromo. As you know, she has her wonderful show on Fox News on Sunday. I think it's one of the best shows on television. And she also does a very good show every day on Fox Business. She's one of the few genuine, honest journalists out there. Here is what she put up on X just a few days ago. And I want to give a big hat tip to Elon Musk, because Elon drew everyone's attention to Maria's post. Elon is also sounding the alarm. And he's saying, Trump, the country, everybody, listen now to what Maria Bartiromo is now reporting. So here's what Maria Bartiromo wrote. She says, this is from a friend. Quote, friend of mine's wife had to take her 16-year-old son, this is in Texas, to the Department of Motor Vehicle, the DMV, this week for a new license. Couldn't get an online appointment. It was all full. So they went in person and had to go to 3 DMVs to get something done. Now you're going to say, Jeff. Okay, the DMVs are packed. What's the story here? Here it is. First DMV was in Weatherford. It had a massive line of illegal immigrants getting licenses and had a tent and table outside the front door of the DMV registering them to vote. Second one was in Fort Worth, Texas. Same lines, same Democrats out front, same table, same tent. They finally went to the third DMV. This was in North Fort Worth, Texas. This one had no lines, so they could go in and actually get a license. But it had the same voter registration drive. Now, on the feed or the thread, whatever you call it, you've got now person after person coming out, whether it's Alabama, Ohio, Virginia, New Hampshire, saying, we're seeing the exact same things here. Huge lines at the DMV or RMV. They use different acronyms for different states, but basically either DMVs or RMVs. They're same process, full of illegals, full of non-citizens, full of these so-called migrants that they flooded our country with. They're all getting driver's licenses, long lines, and there's not Republicans there. There's only Democrats there. They've got their table, they've got their tent, and they're registering them by the millions. By the millions. All across this country. So, why would you be registering people who are blatantly non-citizens? There's no question. Why would you want to register them? Why? A, they shouldn't be registered to vote. I know they're automatically registered to vote in many states. I get that. But in states that they're not automatically registered to vote, like in Texas, okay? Boom, they're registering them to vote. Why? Why? Because they're planning on these illegals to vote for the Democrats. It's so obvious. Now, you don't like that example. Okay, look this one up. I don't want you to take my word for it. And if there's any misinformatio, as the Russians would put it, misinformation that I'm giving you, I'm telling you, I will resign from being behind this microphone. So when these Dems and liberals, these idiots who email me constantly, there's no voter fraud, illegals aren't voting, that's all a pack of lies. Okay. In Alabama, huge local story. The media has been all over it. The Alabama Secretary of State, look it up, please, don't take my word for it, says he found minimum 3,000 illegal aliens or non-citizens who were on the voting rolls. They were registered to vote. And the question everybody in Alabama is, well, how did this happen? Because it's in Alabama, it's illegal if you're a non-citizen or an illegal alien to be registered to vote, never mind to vote. He doesn't know, he says. He says they're launching a full-out investigation to find out how this could possibly happen. They've now purged the voting rolls of these 3,000 plus illegals and non-citizens. But my point is, in Alabama, illegals are getting registered to vote. 3,000, and that's just what they caught. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. So don't tell me that the Democrats are not planning to steal this election. You better believe it, they're planning to steal this election. And they're already doing it right underneath our collective noses. That's why they brought in 10 to 15 million illegals. That was always the ultimate insurance policy for Biden and Harris. And these, as Trump would put it, these stupid Republicans, they just stand back and say nothing and pretend that everything is fine. That 2020 was fine, that 2022 was fine, that no, in America, voter fraud, impossible. Impossible. Even though we've had fraud for God knows how many hundreds of years. Look at Tammany Hall. Just look at the history of Tammany Hall in New York. Littered with voter fraud. Littered with ballot stuffing. Look at Chicago. Okay? Chicago. Littered with voter fraud. Littered with ballot stuffing. It's the stuff of legends. There was a stolen election in 1876, presidential election. It was stolen. No doubt about it. 1960, Kennedy stole that from Nixon. Now, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, have we even had stolen presidential elections? Da, as the Russians would say. Yes. All of a sudden now, when they're stealing it in front of everybody, there's no fraud. Their election system is perfect. As they hand out universal mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting, ballot trafficking, ballot drop boxes. The steal is on. 8:51 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing good, but you're a better man than I am because I could not sit through last night and watch that DNC. I just sat there and blindly watched QVC for 3 hours to save myself. There was no way I could have watched that. But I just have a couple of comments here. I mean, you educate your audience. Obviously you do your homework. You let us know what the difference between the reality is and what we're seeing in mainstream media. My worries about this upcoming election, I mean, we can talk about the stealing of the election. I'm not sure how much that we all can do as listeners here. I mean, when you start hearing about these lines in Texas and you got a Republican governor there like Greg Abbott, I mean, if he can't get a handle on this, I'm not sure how any of us can. But the one thing that, right now, that the only thing we can really watch, at least in my opinion, notwithstanding the stealing, is the polls. And we've seen what's happened in the polls since Kamala Harris has entered this race. And I feel like Donald Trump is, he's stealing defeat out of the jaws of victory here. I mean, he's fighting for those independents, and I think that pretty much everybody would agree on that. Your audience, 99% of your audience is voting for Donald Trump, if not more. And on the MSNBC, CNN side, they're all going to vote for whoever the Democrat is. So you're playing for the middle of the roaders. And every time I hear Donald Trump open his mouth and call people dumb, talking about how he's better looking than Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's the worst president. I mean, this, as inflammatory as Joe Biden is, he is giving mainstream media and Democrats a weapon every time he holds a rally. I mean, he's got so many issues that he can turn to. I mean, immigration, biggest issue for everybody in this country. Inflation, crime in our major cities, wars across the world. I mean, he has a whole plethora of issues that he can just lay out in some sort of logical manner for the public. But he just can't help himself. And, when he goes to these rallies, 20, 30, 40,000 people, they're all voting for him. But he goes into his own entertainment mode of, this is my audience. They're the biggest audience in the world. But the middle-of-the-road voter who just wants to know, why am I going to vote for you over the Democrat? If they don't like him, they're going to have a hard time voting for him. I just wish he would stay on his teleprompter. If he wants to go off every now and then, make a little joke that's not insulting. But tens of millions of us are depending upon him. And when I see him do this, it infuriates me. It reminds me of that 2020 debate with Biden when he just wouldn't stop. He kept, every time Joe Biden opened his mouth, he just kept jumping in to the point where in this debate, they had a need to mute the microphones. I mean, it's just, I feel like he, like I said, he's stealing defeat out of the jaws of victory. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but I wish he would just settle down and stick to the points that are going to win him the election.
Dan, let me ask you this, and just to play devil's advocate, because what you hear a lot from the Trump team, because they're aware of these criticisms that you have, because many of his own voters think like you, Dan. They agree with you. Many agree with you. Diehard Trump supporters say, in fact, we just had, a caller from Florida a while back. Cindy says, it doesn't bother me, but people I speak to who are Trump voters say I can't stand it when he keeps insulting her because it's getting him off message. So they're hearing a lot of this. And Trump's counter-argument and what his team's counter-argument is, but look at all the names he gets called over and over and over again. It's infinitely worse than anything Trump calls Kamala or Biden or anyone else. They call him Hitler. They call him a white supremacist. They call him a mass murderer. They call him a dictator. They call him a threat to democracy. They call him the head of the KKK. They revile and defame his supporters, saying we're all KKK except we're taking our hoods off. We're all neo-Nazis. We need to be put in re-education camps. We're threats to democracy. We're racists. We're bigots. So according to them, they're saying, how come no one ever tells them, ever, lay off the insults? They can insult us, slander us, defame us, demonize us. But when Trump counterpunches, he's the bad guy. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that they're as inflammatory on the other side as Donald Trump might be when he speaks, whether it's in interviews or rallies or when he was on with Elon or whatever. But, the difference is they've got mainstream media and they can take everything that he says and put it out to the masses. I mean, we've got some media out there, but let's face it, it's all left-leaning media that we have. So unfortunately, I mean, he's been through the ringer. He's been shot. He's been brought to court multiple times. He's standing right now on the precipice of potentially going to prison. I mean, this guy has been through a lot, but he needs to win an election. And, this whole thing they used in 2020, we need to put adults back in there. If that's working for them, then he's got to do. I don't think that just going toe-to-toe and using these, calling her, that he's a more attractive person and she's dumb and he's the worst president. I don't know how that gets him any votes. If it got him votes, I'd say, yeah, go back toe-to-toe. They're calling you Hitler. You call her stupid. But is that going to get him any votes? I don't think so. I think if he wants to play to those middle-of-the-roaders, the reasonable voters that say, I really don't know what I want, lay out your issues. You got immigration. You got inflation. The world is on fire. You've got protests all over this country. It wasn't that way under his presidency. That's all he has to do. I mean, I'd be upset too. Somebody calls me names. Your natural instinct, you want to call them a name. But if it's not doing him any good, then I don't think it's productive. I don't know. That's just my take.
Oh, Dan, look, you've laid out the case. You've really laid out the case. Dan, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. I know that Grace, my wonderful wife, certainly agrees with you. She's going to vote for Trump. She's a huge Trump supporter. But she says those insults hurt him more than they help him. And, her point is your point. For the sake of the country, he has to win. She goes, I understand. Look, I'd be very upset, too, if everything that was done to him was done to me. She goes, I completely sympathize with the guy. But if he goes down, we go down. The country goes down. So for the good of the country, if it's not working, this is her argument and your argument, Dan, and many people who support Trump. Look, I'm just thicker skinned about this. To me, it doesn't bother me. For example, I thought it was funny. I just chuckled. I'll be honest with you. When he said he's better looking than Kamala, I laughed. Grace thought it was the stupidest thing he could have said. I just laughed. I thought it was funny. But anyway, so I just react differently. But that's the argument, that the country is at stake. You have to win every vote. You got to appeal to the undecideds, the former Biden disillusioned voters, the independents who are still on the fence, as you put it, the middle of the roaders. And insults and name calling turns them off. And so, this is the argument. You've got to be super disciplined, stay on message, stay on point, and stick to the issues. And because it's such a target-rich environment, all you got to do is do a compare and contrast, and he will destroy her. So I'm just curious. This is Dan's argument. This is obviously Dr. Grace's argument. Do you agree or disagree? Do you think Trump is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory? Not with his policies or his agenda, but with the name calling and the insults. John in the great state of Georgia. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, John.
On the insult page, I'll start with that, and that is there are certain women who can be insulted publicly and certain women that can't. So Kamala can't, but for instance, Hillary could. Okay, so that's turning a lot of women off. So he's got to stop on that.
Okay, sorry, John. Could you just say that again? You're saying some women you could insult and others you can't. Is that what you said?
I'm breaking up. Yeah, there's certain women who can be insulted publicly and certain women who can't.
I got you. And you're saying because Hillary was so polarizing and so disliked by so many people that it's almost like, hit her again. So you could get away with it. Kamala, because she's hidden more behind the curtain, more behind the scenes under Biden, you're saying it doesn't work as well, correct?
Right, it's going to turn a lot of women off. You can't. There are certain women I would say that you can insult publicly because A, they have thicker skins. B, the public accepts it, or I should say the general public accepts it, and certain women you can't. And Kamala is one you can't because they won't let you do it. The women who are both conservative and the women who are liberal will not tolerate it. because they see it as an attack on women as a whole. But Hillary is, to your point, such a polarizing figure, for instance, that it's okay if you do it to her.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
That's a problem for him. But more to my point is, I think that the Trump fans team has to begin to attack and flip the script on, say, the Democrat voters, all these people who support this crazy convention that's going on, and what they're the people who are racist, right? And point that out, because logic will tell you if they're supporting the illegal aliens coming across the border, giving them all this money, the pie's only so big, so by definition, they're decreasing the amount of money going to the blacks and other minorities that are currently here, which means that they don't want them to have it. And they also say that it's racist to have voter ID. So they can't have it both ways.
Well, John, look, just to bounce off of what you're saying, there's no question that Democrats are putting illegal aliens above black voters, Latino voters, minority voters. I mean, all voters, but especially some of their key voting blocks. There's no question. They've sold them down the river. And what I find incredible, just objectively now, okay, just standing back, what is their fundamental argument against Trump? Their fundamental argument against Trump is that he's a threat to democracy, that it's over, that if he wins in November, it's over. We'll never have another election again. The Constitution is over. The Bill of Rights, the country, the whole thing is over. He's going to be dictator for life. And that he's Hitler. That he's the second coming of Adolf Hitler. Okay, no matter how insane that sounds, that's what these idiots keep repeating, and many of them believe it. Okay, so what are we watching right now at the DNC? Objectively, last night, the President of the United States, the sitting president, who was now overthrown in a coup by his own party, the man who won the nomination fair and square. He won it. These were free and fair primaries. He won 87% of the vote, got over 14 million Democrat voters. And because he had a dismal debate against Trump, where his cognitive decline, which was obvious to everybody, but let that go, was exposed. And so party insiders overthrew him. They toppled him and replaced him with a woman who never won a single vote. They didn't have an open primary. They replaced him. They installed her and replaced him with someone that they literally coronated. And Trump is the threat to democracy. They literally violated and negated democracy. They betrayed every democratic principle imaginable. And on top of that, who do they have protesting by the tens and tens and tens of thousands outside of their own convention? These are all Democrat voters. These are all far left progressives, okay? Communists. They are shouting, death to America, death to the Jews. They are openly calling for the mass murder and annihilation of over 6 million Jews in Israel. They're all waving the Palestinian flag. They're waving Hamas flags, and they're openly saying, from the river to the sea, that's their chant all day yesterday, Palestine shall be free, meaning every Jew must be expelled or annihilated, murdered, wiped out from Israel. So, they're the anti-Semites. They're the ones calling for the mass destruction of the Jews. And they're the ones who are overturning democracy and installing someone who they're officially going to nominate in 3 nights from tonight. And he's Hitler. He's the threat to democracy. It's the exact opposite. And this is how detached from reality they've become. Now, if I'm Trump and if I'm the Republicans, I go to town on the Democrats and the DNC. Instead, I don't know what, not Trump himself. He's working like a dog. I mean, he did another rally yesterday. He's got a big crime roundtable in Michigan. He's barnstorming through all these critical battleground states. But I look at other Republicans here. Chris Sununu, to me, the governor of New Hampshire, is a complete clown. He's an absolute buffoon, undermining Trump at every turn. I look at so many of these other so-called Republican leaders, and either they're useless or they're trying to undermine and damage Trump. Final word to you, John.
What I'd say is this on that point. There are many Democrat, what I call attack dogs, okay? And there aren't enough Republican attack dogs because there's certain things the presidential candidate should not say and cannot say, but the attack dogs can. So the Democrats have always had these political attack dogs, okay? AOC, Schumer, because they're essentially politically bulletproof in their district. So no matter what they say, no matter what they do, they're always going to get reelected. So the Republicans do not have enough political attack dogs to be pointing out these things. Okay? Now, maybe that should be Vance because of his position. And in other words, take Vance and elevate the position of vice president through him and his being this kind of attack dog, because Pence certainly wasn't. And do it that way, because right now there aren't enough, and they're not pointing it out.
Oh, I agree, John. They got to punch much harder. They got to hit harder, and I'm not saying name calling or insults, but they got to carve them up. They got to start being surgical. They got to start criticizing, exposing, unmasking. They got to take the fight to the Democrats, because I mean, I don't know how you allow this to go on. I mean, really, I don't. You know, I mean, this is such a naked betrayal of everything the Democrats supposedly stand for. And they're lecturing us. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. John, thank you so much for that call. Ben in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Ben, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I haven't called in a long time, but I wanted to talk to you about, you think that this election is already going to be stolen. I just want to hear you say it now. What do you plan on doing if it is? If Kamala Harris wins, what are you going to do?
Are you, seriously, are you back to that juvenile game of what I'm going to do or what I'm not going to do? Look, Ben, you haven't called in a long time, which, by the way, has increased the IQ of the audience. The last time you were on, I'm going to be honest with you, you called for my wife to be raped. Okay? That's the kind of scumbag that you are. And we have it on tape, so don't even bother denying it. And after I dealt with your call, it was one of the few times, I want you to know what I did for you. Upper management contacted me, and they said they were so disgusted by your phone call and you're calling for my wife to be raped that they were looking to go to the police, because we have your number, and track you down and press charges. And I said to them, this guy's an idiot. And just ignore him, because I don't want you to be tracked down by the police, because you're so stupid, you may land yourself in jail. So just to tell you the truth, your little trolling act, it doesn't work. It's tired. It's adolescent. It's puerile. And you have nothing to contribute to our conversation. When you talk about raping someone's wife, to me, you're beyond the pale. And I'm going to say this to you. I said it to you once, and I'm going to say it to you one last time. You need mental help. I'm being very honest with you. There is something psychologically, psychiatrically wrong with you. I don't know if your mother dropped you as a baby. I don't know what kind of problems you have. Your father abandoned you. I don't know if you've done a lot of drugs. I don't know what your problem is. But really, see a shrink and get some help. And honestly, Ben, have a nice life. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Many Trump supporters are saying, you heard Dan in Woburn, he's one of them, Trump needs to cut out the insults. He needs to cut out the name calling. That it's hurting him with a lot of voters, especially female suburban voters, and that he needs every vote he can get, that he's going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Do you agree or disagree? 920 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Pat in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Pat, and welcome.
want to say that, first off, I will vote for Trump no matter what. However, he has a winning message. He has a fantastic record. The other side doesn't. So that's probably why they resort to word salads and name-calling. He doesn't have to do that. He can run on his accomplishments and his message. And when he starts with the insults, people take the focus away from his message and think about what he said, the silly name he called somebody. So he really needs to stop that. I know it does turn off some women, not me. I'm going to the message and his accomplishments. So I'm urging him, please, just stick to message and your accomplishments. You can't lose the election for us. We need you.
Pat, do you think, like Dan in Woburn, and I know there's others because they're texting me, they've been texting now for the last 15 minutes, some disagreeing, but many saying, I do fear that Trump is now snatching, by these insults and name-calling, that Trump is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. That what is an election he should win, can win, he's now blowing because he's allowing the media to focus on these insults, which are really very small part of his rallies or his speeches, but they put all of the onus on that and not on all of his wonderful, successful policies and record. Do you feel, Pat, that he's now costing us the election potentially?
I pray to God it doesn't, but I could see it happening, yes.
Interesting.
And
Pat,
the other thing I want to say
go ahead,
quick.
Pat.
Does Grace have, I know I don't have, but does Grace have a $62,000 necklace? Because Kamala does.
Really?
Yes, I got it from the Vance campaign. They sent me a picture of it. It's a Tiffany necklace. One of my friends, I showed it to her, and she said it looks like a dog chain. But anyway, it's $62,000. And she's running around talking about people being hot up in the economy and how she's going to fix things. Really, Kamala? You're really in touch with the average woman.
Pat, that's a great point. I did not know that. Pat, you just taught me something. Pat, thank you very, very much for that call. Ay. A $62,000 necklace? No, I mean, to me, what I do know is Westmount, because it's like, 8 blocks away from McGill University where I used to teach. And that's that area in Montreal that she did her high school years there. Kamala, when she was younger, her mother worked at McGill and at the Montreal Jewish General Hospital as a breast cancer researcher and professor. And she made a boatload of money, which I don't begrudge. Don't get me wrong. But they lived in Westmount. And Westmount, if you ever go to Montreal, trust me, just go through Westmount. Your eyes are going to pop out of your skull. I mean, some of these homes they're stunning. And it's the location, and it's on Mount Royal. It oversees much of Montreal. It is the wealthiest, toniest area, zip code, not just in the province of Quebec, literally in all of Canada. And that's where Kamala she basically grew up in Canada, in Montreal, and she grew up in Westmount. And yesterday, they're pushing video after video. Working class gal had to claw her way for everything. She knows the needs and struggles of the working class. Yeah, okay. If you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida you may be interested in. Now, she did claw her way to the top, but that was more on her back. She slept her way to the top. That's true. Tom, so I guess in that sense, she's a working gal. Tom in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I'd like to say a few words about Joe Biden.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
If I could.
Yes, please.
I just recently read an article, or I didn't read the whole thing. I couldn't do that, but it was in Hill magazine, saying that the Dems, they may still use the 25th Amendment to get rid of him before the end of his term. And one of the quotes in the article was, Biden is a broken man. This is my favorite quote in the article. Biden is a broken man in a deep valley of confusion, depression, and anger. And I'm thinking, after watching all this, Biden doesn't have the character. He doesn't have the guts or gumption or character to confront the real threats to the fake democracy. The ones who told him that all the delegates he won during the party primaries were just pretend. When it comes down to it, the party elites in the party Politburo always reserve the right to choose the presidential candidate. And if Joe didn't believe them, they told him that they would use the 25th Amendment to get him out of there before the end of his term. Instead of telling him to pound sand, like someone with gumption or guts would have done, because he did have a lot to lose, I think he's been assured.
Well, he's been assured they're going to take care of him and his family. But no, you're right, Tom. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so he was installed by the party elites, and then he was taken out by the party elites. You know, and that's what happened to Joe Biden. And they're going to do the same thing to Kamala. Cancel the debate. Cancel the debate. 9:33 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, lines are absolutely full. I promise I'll get back to the phone lines. But one of the big pieces of news yesterday was that Lindsay Davis, she is going to be the moderator for the ABC News debate between former President Trump and Comrade Kamala. So this is the moderator. Now you tell me, I'm just going to play the cut. She's now, you tell me if she's interviewing Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and you tell me if this moderator, this so-called journalist, Lindsay Davis, is fit to moderate this debate. Roll cut 100, Mike.
Former President Donald Trump is expected to go campaign in Howell, Michigan tomorrow. Many people are aware that a month ago in Howell, KKK protesters marched in the streets with the white robes on and suggested that they support Donald Trump. I'm curious if you make anything about that connection and him going in particular to Howell tomorrow.
Well, you know, anyone who's doing a little bit of research might have said that's really a bad idea. Look at the optics. You're showing up where the KKK was just at the same time you're in Michigan. I mean, this is I think a troubling strategy that we see from the other side to divide us and to scare us and to stoke fear and anger. And contrast to what we're going to see here all week, this is a gathering of joyful, happy warriors. We are rolling up our sleeves. We're doing the work. We take no one and no vote for granted. But by the same token, we're not going to feed into the hatred. And
this is beyond disgusting. I mean, this is beyond disgusting. Number one, I'm telling you, Trump, if his people are listening, pull out of the debate. It's clear now. This is a setup. This is an ambush. This woman is a journalist. What the hell does the KKK have to do so they showed up in that town in Michigan a month ago? Big deal. What does this have to do with Trump going to talk about crime and other issues in Michigan? So what? Who cares? But she's trying to tie Trump to the KKK. This Lindsay Davis, I'm sorry, is an absolute scumbag. This is worse than journalistic malpractice. This is out and out defamation. And if I were the Trump campaign, I would sue ABC now to oblivion. I would sue them to the poorhouse and take them for every penny that they're worth. And by the way, they're going on this Gretchen Whitmer, by the way, and I could get, you want to talk about her. Okay, I can get to her in a second. But from the same party and the same voters that literally outside that convention center are shouting death to America and death to the Jews, and they're lecturing us about hate and the KKK? Are you kidding me? Pull out of the debate. Pull out. I'm telling you. This is ABC News. This is Steffi Stephanopoulos. This is Jonathan Carl. This is Martha Raddatz. This is Rachel Scott. This is Lindsay Davis. This is not going to be a fair, impartial debate. It's going to be, you're a racist, you're a neo-Nazi, you're a convicted felon, you're a white supremacist, that's what it's going to be for 90 minutes. That's all that's going to be. No. Pull out of the debate and say, after this comment, you want me to have her moderate that debate? No way. No way. Absolutely no way. Get a fair, impartial moderator or I pull out. Agree, disagree. Matt on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Matt, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning, my friend.
How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good, Jeff. I'm doing good. Jeff, listen, we know that this deal's been on for 3.5 years.
Okay, hold on, Matt, just for 1 second. Again, you sound like a droid in Star Wars. It's not you, it's us. So you were talking like a normal human being. It's okay. So it's the provider. So it's not us. It's not our board. It's who is it? Is it Verizon? Whatever. Anyway, it's okay. It's whatever. T-Mobile, Verizon, what? AT&T, whatever. This is our provider. So Sandy and Mike are adamant. Don't blame iHeart. Don't blame the technology here. It's the telephone company. Okay, Matt. Do we have a human being again? Matt, are you there, Matt?
Jeff, I'm here.
Okay, you sound normal again. Go ahead.
Yeah, my wife might disagree with that, though. But listen. This, I don't care what you want to call it, the deep state, the fifth column, the administrative state, these people have been in the process of stealing this election for 3.5 years. They knew they needed 4 more years down the road to complete the transformation of this country. They knew this. And they've set this up with the open border, flooding it with illegals. And I've said on your show time and time again, they are going to steal this election. They can't. The alternative is not an option for them. Because there's too much crime, too much corruption. They've done too many. They've tried to take him out. They've tried to impeach him. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to jail him with lawfare. They put his surrogates in jail, whether it's Sidney Powell to Steve Bannon. Then they did the ultimate. They tried to have a public execution. And everything has been disrupted and failed. We do have a chance to win this. I believe it. I've been listening to your show all morning. I hear people come in, we're snatching defeat from the jaws of victory and on Trump and how Trump conducts himself at his rallies and whatnot. And yes, I can subscribe to some of that. But I'm going to tell you something. I watched a rally he had yesterday in York, Pennsylvania, in a factory. And I'm going to tell you something, Jeff. This man was on point. He was on message. He was serious. He was contrite. He was composed. He was articulate. He laid out his policy and he laid out his accomplishments. 30% of this country, you and me, are going to vote for him. The other 30 or 40%, the other 40% is going to vote for Biden or Harris. That 15 to 20% that we're vying for, the Trump that I watched yesterday afternoon in York, that's a man these people will get behind. I don't know if you saw that speech. If you didn't, Google it or go on Real American Voice or Rumble or somewhere and watch it. He was absolutely perfect.
Matt, I agree with you. I agree with you. I didn't see the speech, but I read about the speech and I read what he said in the speech. And it was immaculate. And by the way, the one in North Carolina last week, it was practically a perfect speech. I said, I'm telling you, I don't think Reagan could have done a better speech. Seriously. It was, as you put it, it was surgical. It was on point. It hit every single policy issue, from energy to the border invasion, to immigration, to crime, to inflation, to the economy, to global world security, to peace abroad, to his record and how strong it was. He tattooed Kamala Harris again and again and again as a communist and a San Francisco progressive and liberal. I mean, I listened to that speech, I read about the one in York. I saw the one in North Carolina. I said, that's your speech. If you can just keep repeating that speech over and over and over and over again, there's no way you're going to lose the election. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. So he's got it. I mean, it's there. The secret sauce is there. And he's just got to keep delivering and just keep hammering it home and hammering it home. No, look, Matt, he's going to win this election. I'm telling you right now, he's going to win. My only fear now is, can the Democrats steal it? That's the only issue now. That is the only issue. And what they're trying to do, and this is what this is all about. That's what the convention is about. That's what the media support and this propaganda offensive is all about. And these fake polls, they're pushing these fake polls to make it seem the race is much closer than what it really is. Can they make the steal plausible? That's what they succeeded in 2020. Can they do it? They couldn't do it under Joe Biden, which is why they had to throw him overboard. So the question now is, can they do it with Kamala Harris? That's the only question. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out. And that's why I keep saying, like a broken record, and I'm going to keep saying it all the way to November 5th. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your siblings, bring your children, bring your parents, bring your grandparents. I don't care. Bring as many people to the polls as possible. We have to swamp the polls to win. 9:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. Mike in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff. Mike here from Saugus. We stand out every Wednesday from 4 to 6 at the corner of Linfels in Maine. And we have people coming out cheering for Donald Trump like you can't imagine. But I'm afraid the Democrats' machine is so strong, they're going to steal this election. And if that happens, we're going to have to go to the streets and we're going to have to fight for our country. We're going to have to. Because this election is about good and evil.
Mike, I'm just curious. Do you think the country will believe and accept if, say, Kamala Harris is declared the winner? Do you think the country will buy it? Or when they look at her disastrous record, her disastrous vice presidency, frankly, how stupid she is when she just opens her mouth, and it just some of her insane radical left-wing neo-Marxist policies, as I mentioned, like price controls on food and food production and grocery stores. Okay, to name one of many. Do you think that the country will believe that she won, and will they accept her as a legitimate president the way many did for Biden?
Absolutely not. They will not go along with this time around. We have to go to the streets peacefully and we have to protest. But where are the Republicans that are in office? I don't see them coming out, but a handful for Trump. They're just, I don't know, they're sitting on their rear end and they want him to do all the work.
Well, you're dead on, Mike. I mean, that's the thing. See, the thing I don't like about the criticisms of Trump, I'm not saying that some of them aren't valid. Please don't get me wrong. But, who's the guy getting shot at? Him. Who's the guy they're trying to put in jail? Him. Who's the guy they've convicted of these bogus, manufactured, made-up crimes? Him. Whose business are they trying to bankrupt? Him. Who's the one they've tried to throw off the ballot? Him. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. My point is, they have persecuted this man 6 ways to Sunday. And there he is taking blow after blow after blow. Where's Mitch McConnell? Where's MAGA Mike? Where's meager Mike Johnson? Where's the congressional leadership? Where's the, outside of a few Republican governors, very few, where are they? Seriously, where are they? I don't see any of them. So the only guy that's in the arena, the only guy that's constantly in the lion's den, to be fair, is him and J.D. Vance. I got to say this about J.D. Whatever doubts there were about J.D., man, has he dispelled them. He is articulate, he's punchy, he's smart, he's combative. He's holding apparently another press conference today at 1:00. He's been Trump's strongest, staunchest ally. I mean, Mike Pence couldn't shine J.D. Vance's shoes. He blows Mike Pence out of the water. So outside of J.D. Vance and say, I don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lowen Boebert or Matt Gaetz, or there's a handful of, members of Congress who I still see out there fighting for him. But outside of that, it's me. It's a couple of other radio talk show hosts. It's Tucker Carlson. You can count us on two hands who are willing to stick our neck out on behalf of Trump and the MAGA movement. So, you're right, Mike. Where are the Republicans? Nowhere. They're hiding. They're hiding because the sad fact of the matter is, Mike, they're part of the swamp. They're part of the corrupt establishment and ruling class. So many of them don't want Trump to win, even if it means absolute disaster for our country. Mike, I've got less than a minute. I want you to finish, my patriotic friend. What say you?
I love you. You're just not right 100%, but you're right 1,000%. And also, where are the Republicans in Massachusetts? They're letting this rotten Maura Healey get away with absolutely whatever she wants to do.
Mike, great way to end the show. Thank you so much for that call. Look, all of you need to know this. When I was in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, there were 50 state delegations there, okay, for the Republican convention. 49 of them were utterly, completely united. The only one that was disunited, in disarray, and constantly fighting with one another was the Mass Republican delegation. And I'm telling you who the blame is. It is the Mass GOP chairman or chairwoman, Amy Carnevale. And I've never seen someone that bitter, that divisive, that vindictive than her. The woman is a cancer on the Massachusetts Republican Party. She's got to go. Bye-bye.